Welcome to Making Chassidus Real, Part 12. There's a common theme in Chassidus and in the Rebbe's Sichos coming out, actually some of it coming out of the last week's Parshiyos before, B'Shalach and so on, which is an interesting idea, but actually it's a very fundamental concept, which perhaps is important to think about because it differentiates how we live al pi Torah as opposed to how sometimes the secular world encourages us to live. That's the idea of always being beyond one kav, one mindset, but having at least two. What I'm referring to is, for example, a pasuk in Parshas B'Shalach, which says, "V'amayim lohem choymo miminam u'mismoilam." The water became a wall, both on the right and the left, and the way the Rabbi explains it in a few places is this idea that in order to go out of Mitzrayim, there needs to be both Chesed and Gourarie. Chesed and Gourarie, of course, being the main powers, the main forces of our Midas. Very opposite, but yet, and sometimes difficult to have both Kavim, but that's important. We have this explanation come up in the Simonim of Kashrus, Male Geira, and Mafres Shesa, the split hooves of an animal, where the Rebbe explains the reason it has to be split hooves, again, is the idea of the two kavim. It can't be just one kav, it's got to be both right and left, chesed and gourarie. We have also the explanation, another example is the fact that we learn, the Rebbe explains the fact that we learn that Yaakov Avinu, when he was in the house of Lavan, said Tehillim, according to one shitta, he said the Tehillim of the 15 Shira Malos. And the significance of the 15 is that he said 15 Shira Malos because there were 15 years of overlap between Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov overlapped 15 years as they lived together. And when Yaakov was in the house of Lavan, the method to survival, the method to spiritual survival, ruchnistic survival, was not just the kav of Yaakov, but it was all three: Chesed, Gourarie, and Tiferes, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, this takes a lot of avodah, but it's so important in every area of life. Everything we do requires both chesed and gourarie. Sometimes just chesed, sometimes gourarie, sometimes a combination of both. And the reason that's so important is because most people have an atiyah, they have a disposition to one or the other. We have personalities. We all have personalities the way we are born. But part of the idea of being able to have chesed and gourarie together is and do either one, anything that's necessary, anything that's needed, anything we need to be able to do the right thing and to mekayim the Ratzon Hashem, is because really we transcend the hagabolos, we transcend the limitations of being only in one kav or the other. There's a very fascinating maimer in one of the early years where the Rebbe explains that that's why the Yidden left Mitzrayim, or the moment of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Makas Mechoros, was at Chatzos, the middle of the night, because the first half of the night is chesed, and the second half of the night the first half of the night is gourarie, and the second half of the night is chesed. And there isn't really a moment in the middle. It's like a borrowed term. You can't really have the middle. It's every moment of time either belongs to the first or the second half. But yet it's a moment not in Bria, because Bria belongs to one kav. It's either chesed or gourarie. Eish is gourarie, Mayim is chesed. But Chatzos, Yetzias Mitzrayim is Chatzos because it's higher than the world. Transcends the world. Comes from the Mailam in Hagabolah. Now, why is it such? This is a concept in Chassidus. Why is that such an important thing? Because it comes to the nekuda of being able to live in a way where we are hecher von sich, we're higher than ourselves. And it's very different to the way the world works. Often in non-Jewish literature and in non-Jewish approaches, non-Jewish hashkafa, there's always an emphasis on one thing. And that becomes the whole thing. Because it seems like the world finds it extremely difficult to operate with a combination of kavim. Even if you take something very, very simple as parenting, for example. Nowadays, maybe it's a response to a very harsh method of parenting in previous generations, so it became this thing that nowadays is all about love. Love will cure everything. unconditional love, 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 everything just be love. Now, is love important? Of course, extremely important. But is parenting with only love effective parenting? Absolutely not, and it's Heipach HaTorah. We know that we need Chesed and Gourarie. For example, the Gemara says we need the concept of Yemin and Smoil. Yemin Mekareves and Smoil Doicha. Of course, the Yemin must be stronger, and as the Rebbe points out, that nowadays the main emphasis has to be Yemin, but Smoil is necessary. And Smoil means teaching Kabbalah soil, and Smoil means sometimes disciplining. Now, of course, it can all be in the context of Chesed. Chesed must be the driving force. I think there's a confusion. People find it very difficult to differentiate between being firm and being harsh. Being firm and being harsh are two different things. But being firm is important. There's nothing wrong in making a child feel uncomfortable, to push them a little bit, to do what they're not comfortable doing. That's part of discipline. That's part of Gourarie. It's part of Kabbalah soil. At the same time, bringing Geschmack, bringing love. And in the parenting relationship, the same thing. To, of course, shower children with tremendous love, but at the same time, when Gourarie is needed, it's needed. And Gourarie doesn't have to be harsh, but it does mean it can be firm. Only the chibur of both kavim will result in good results. We find this where the Rebbe tells us the same thing about how we makarev other yidden. Where the Rebbe says about Metalmidov Shel Aaron, Oyeves Abrios, Umekaravon La Torah, bring them close to the Torah and not the Torah to them. And the Rebbe has this line we use it often, and he says, Tkifus, but B'darkei Noima B'darkei Shalom. Look, just listen to that line for a moment. Tkifus and Darkei Noima B'darkei Shalom sometimes is hard to put together, but that's the idea of living with both kavim, Ava and Yira. Even when we do a mitzvah, it's the same thing. Every mitzvah needs both. Sometimes the meticulous attention to halachic detail, measurements, shiurim, is it big enough, is it small enough, is it high enough? All these different things, that's like a Gourarie thing. It's what Chassidus calls Agbola Atzmis, is what the Eibush told us, it has to be like this and not like this. At the same time, the geschmack in the mitzvah, the feeling, the chayas, the enjoyment is more of a chesed thing, and they have to both come together. Sometimes you see some people that are very meticulous, but they don't have any neshama, no feeling. Sometimes there are people who are very into the kavanis and things, but they don't give attention to the detail. So it says you have to have both. Yiddishkeit, serving Hashem, is both. So I just wanted to share that brief idea today, where paying attention to some of the things and coming out from a couple of, Parshas Boy, Parshas B'Shalach, Chatzois, Kriyas Yamsuf, those two kavim. It's a foundation of living to know that although we might be disposed to one or the other, part of being connected to the Eibishter is to go beyond ourselves, not just to grow in the area which is our teva, but to go against that teva and to incorporate things which are difficult for us, because we have to be able to bring both kavim together in order to be a real Eved Hashem. Have a wonderful day.